Good evening, everyone. I'm Anil. I'm from Toppr. I'm an expert in biology, and for the past two sessions, we have been discussing endocrinology. So, in continuation to that, we'll discuss the last topic in endocrinology. So far, we have discussed these glands. We have discussed about the pineal, hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, adrenal, and pancreas. So what we are left with are the testes. Okay, and in the case of females, it is ovaries. So these are the two glands which we'll discuss. And then in addition to these glands, okay, there are certain tissues in our body which also secrete hormones. Okay, so we'll look at the various tissues. In addition to the testes and ovaries, we'll look at the various tissues which actually secrete the other hormones. Okay, so we'll start with the testes. Right, we'll start with testes. So we started our discussion with so for all the other endocrine glands, we started our discussion talking about the origin. Okay, then we looked at the location, of course, and finally we looked at the structure followed by the various hormones produced by it, right? So following the same thing, what we'll do here is we'll start with the origin. Okay, so if you look at the origin, the testis is actually made by three different layers. Okay, it is made by three different layers. The mesothelium. Okay, when I say three different layers of the embryo. Okay, three different embryonic layers actually help in the formation of the testes. The mesothelium, right, and then you have mesenchyme. Okay, and then you have primordial germ cells. Okay, so it is derived from the testis is derived from all the three layers. Okay, now location. Where is it actually located? Where is the testis actually located? Okay, the testis is actually located near your upper thighs. Okay, so you have your a sac called scrotum. Okay, in your scrotum you actually find two testes. Okay, so you have two testes in the scrotum. Okay, just yeah. So you have two testes which are actually present in a sac called scrotum. Okay, so this is in the case of males, of course. Okay, in the male reproductive system you'll find two testes which are present in sac-like structures called scrotum. Okay, now the skin pouch is actually the scrotum. Now if you look at the actual structure, you can see them, they are actually oval shaped. Okay, if you look at the structure, okay, the structure is, they are oval shaped. Okay, they're oval shaped. And then we get into the details. They're made up of two things. Okay, so what are they made of? Made of two things. One is seminiferous tubules, right, seminiferous tubules, and the other one is what we call it's basically a connective tissue which is actually present around the seminiferous tubules. Okay, so this connective tissue is what we call the stroma. Okay, so we call it stroma or stromal tissue. Okay, or it is also called as interstitial tissue, right? Interstitial tissue. Okay, so you have two things which actually make up the testis. Okay, so again, so this is your testis, right? This is your testis, and this testis, if you look inside, the testis will actually have two things. Like I said, one is your seminiferous tubules. Yeah, so these are all your seminiferous tubules, right? And the matrix or the connective tissue which is actually surrounding it, okay, the connective tissue which is actually surrounding it is what we call the stroma. Okay, the tissue which is surrounding it is called the stroma. So the entire testis, okay, this is your scrotum. Okay, this is your scrotum, the sac which is actually carrying your testis. Okay, the entire testis is made up of two things mainly. One is seminiferous tubules and the other one is the tissue which is surrounding the seminiferous tubules. Okay, now inside the seminiferous tubules, you will find, right, inside the seminiferous tubules you will find, okay, the Sertoli cells, okay, Sertoli cells and spermatozoa, spermatids, okay, and then spermatocytes. So all of these you will actually find inside the seminiferous tubules, all these cells. Okay, the spermatocytes, the Sertoli cells, the spermatozoa and the spermatids. Where do you find them? We will actually find them inside the seminiferous tubules. Okay, inside the seminiferous tubules you will actually find all these cells. Okay, now in the connective tissue or the stromal tissue, okay, in the connective tissue or the stromal tissue you will find another type of cells called the Leydig cells. Okay, the Leydig cells are actually present in the stromal tissue. Inside the seminiferous tubules you will find four types of cells. Okay, just remember the Sertoli cells, this is important. Of course you have spermatozoa, spermatids and spermatocytes. Then you have the, in the tissue which is surrounding the seminiferous tubules, which we call the stromal tissue, we have the Leydig cells. Okay, now let's look at the Leydig cells first. Okay, these Leydig cells are actually stimulated by, okay, they are stimulated by, okay, the luteinizing hormone, LH hormone, which is actually secreted by your pituitary gland. Okay, the pituitary gland produces the luteinizing hormone. This luteinizing hormone, okay, travels through your blood, okay, reaches the testis. Specifically in the testis, it goes to the stromal tissue where the Leydig cells are present, and it binds to the Leydig cells, and this causes the Leydig cells to start, okay, this stimulates the Leydig cells to start secreting androgens. Okay, when the Leydig cells are stimulated by the luteinizing hormone produced by the pituitary gland, the Leydig cells start to secrete the androgens. Okay, now these androgens are also called as male sex hormones. Okay, androgens are also called as male sex hormones, and the various androgens that are produced by the Leydig cells present in the stromal tissue are, okay, total 3 things are produced. Okay, what are they? The first one is testosterone, right? You have testosterone, then you have the dihydrotestosterone, dihydrotestosterone, sorry. Okay, dihydrotestosterone. Then you have androstenedione. Okay, androstenedione. So these are the three things which are actually secreted by the Leydig cells of the stromal tissue in the testis. Okay, now in these three hormones which are actually secreted, the most active one, okay, the most active one is your dihydrotestosterone. Okay, the most active one is your dihydrotestosterone. Now the next best one is your testosterone, and the last or the least active one is your androstenedione. This is the least active one. Okay, this androstenedione is then converted to testosterone, and testosterone is finally activated to dihydrotestosterone in target tissues. Okay, in some specific tissues, the testosterone is finally converted into the active form, which is the dihydrotestosterone. Androstenedione is the precursor for your testosterone. So these are the three hormones which are actually secreted by the Leydig cells. Okay, then what do they do? What do these hormones do? Okay, these hormones have a specific role to play. Okay, so they have several functions, and the most important ones are, okay, we'll look at the functions of the androgens, okay, which is your testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, and androstenedione. Okay, so the functions, if you look at the functions, they regulate, okay, they regulate the maturation. Three things. One is development. Okay, they control. When I say regulate, I mean development. Okay, maturation, and then function. Okay, of what? Of the male sex organs. Okay, of the male sex organs. So complete male sex organ development are actually under control of these androgens, that is testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, and androstenedione. Okay, now in addition to regulation, they also control the or play a role in spermatogenesis. Okay, spermatogenesis is nothing but the process of formation of sperms, okay, which happens in the, again, which occurs in the seminiferous tubules of the testis. Okay, so the spermatogenesis is also, the androgens also play an important role in the spermatogenesis process. And the other function is they also regulate the male sexual behavior. Okay, the behavior in males is actually, okay, is actually controlled by these androgens. Okay, so these are the various functions of the androgens which are actually produced by the Leydig cells of stromal tissue in the testis. Okay, now we have in addition to the stromal tissue, we have the seminiferous tubules, and in the seminiferous tubules we have Sertoli cells. Okay, the Sertoli cells of the seminiferous tubules, okay, present in the testis, actually secrete, okay, they actually regulate, or they are actually responsible for the formation of testis, and they play a critical role in spermatogenesis. So all the hormones are actually being produced by, okay, all the hormones are actually being produced by the Leydig cells. Okay, now the Sertoli cells, okay, they are stimulated by the follicle stimulating hormone of the pituitary gland. Okay, so two hormones of the pituitary gland are actually controlling two separate tissues in the testis. Okay, the luteinizing hormone is controlling the stromal tissue, okay, and causing the stromal tissue to produce the androgens, and then you have follicular stimulating hormone which is actually stimulating the Sertoli cells, okay, and contributing to the formation of testis as well as the spermatogenesis process. Okay, so this is about your testis. Then you have ovaries. Okay, now if you look at the ovaries, okay, if you look at the ovaries, you can see there are two ovaries located on either side of the uterus. So you have one ovary on the left and one ovary on the right. Okay, and then they are actually present in shallow depressions called, okay, ovarian fossae. Okay, they are actually present in shallow depressions. Now these ovaries are actually connected through, there are two fallopian tubes which are actually connecting the ovaries to the uterus. Okay, so this is the basic general structure of the female reproductive system. So what we are now discussing is only the ovary part, because this part is the one which is actually responsible for the formation of hormones. Of course, in addition to this part, okay, in women, okay, when they actually fertilize and form, when the growth of the embryo actually starts, when the placenta actually forms, okay, that is when the growth of the embryo actually starts, you see the formation of the placenta. When the placenta actually forms, the placenta itself releases some hormones. We'll discuss those in a minute. But as long as a woman is not pregnant, okay, the female hormones are exclusively produced by the ovary region. Okay, now let's see we'll start with the origin of the ovaries. I already told you the location. Okay, now if you look at the origin, again, they are produced by the they are made by the three layers, just like your testis, the mesothelium, right, and then you have your mesoderm, mesenchyme, mesenchyme, and then you have the primordial germ cells. They're made from, so these three layers of the embryo actually form the ovaries. Okay, these three layers of the embryo actually form the ovaries. Now, just like your testis, these also have an ovoid shape. We're talking about the structure now. Okay, just like they also have ovoid shape, right? And then they are actually made up of three layers. Okay, if you look at the structure will have, the structure of the ovaries will have three layers. Okay, and the three layers are the surface layer. Okay, and this surface layer is also called as, it is also called as germinal epithelium or germinal epithelium. Okay, then you have the cortex, and also you have the medulla. So these are the three layers which are actually seen in an ovary. Okay, the three layers which are actually seen in the ovary. Now if you take the cortex region, since we are talking about the hormones being produced by the ovaries, okay, we are not concentrating on any other layers, we are concentrating only on those layers which are actually responsible for the hormone production. Okay, so if you take the cortex region, okay, the cortex region is made up of two things. It is made of, okay, the follicles, okay, and a hormone producing tissue called stroma. Okay, so follicles and stroma. So therein In male testis, there it was seminiferous tubules and stroma. Here it is follicles and stroma. Now if you take here, it is the follicles which is actually responsible for the formation of, not just follicles, I'm sorry, both follicles and stroma, both are actually there. It was only the leading cells which were present in the stroma which were responsible for the formation of androgens or the testosterone, dihydrotestosterone and androstenedione. Here it is both the follicles and stroma which are actually responsible for the production of estrogens. Okay, so these are actually responsible for the formation of estrogens. Now if you look at the medulla region, you don't have to remember now, but it has very dense, okay, neurovascular network, and even there you will find a lot of stroma. Okay, so if you look at the hormone being produced by the ovaries, I already told you that you are getting your estrogen there. Okay, in addition to the estrogen, you have, if you look at the hormones produced by the ovaries, basically there are two types of hormones which are produced by the ovaries. Okay, but we have seen only one so far, estrogen. Okay, the two types of hormones which are produced by the ovaries are estrogens, okay, and then you have progestins. Okay, now where are these progestins coming from? Okay, these progestins are actually coming from, see, you know the basic biology. So every month a female actually forms an egg, okay, and if that egg gets fertilized, it grows into an embryo. If it is not fertilized, okay, it will rupture, and basically I'm talking about the menstrual cycle. Okay, it gets ruptured, and the contents, the blood and everything is actually released. That is what actually happens in the menstrual cycle. Okay, so you still have the follicular layers, okay, even when the follicle is ruptured. Okay, the layer which is formed, or the structure which is formed from the ruptured follicles, okay, the structure which is formed from the ruptured follicles is what we call the corpus, okay, luteum. The corpus luteum is the structure, okay, the layer which actually remains once the follicle bursts. Okay, so this corpus luteum is the one which actually produces the progestins. Okay, the corpus luteum is the one which actually produces the progestins. Okay, so the estrogens are actually produced by your cortical region. Okay, cortical region is actually responsible for the, not just cortical region, specifically the follicles and the stromal region of the cortex is actually responsible for the estrogen production, and the progestins are produced by the corpus luteum which is formed once the follicle is ruptured. Okay, so that is about the two hormones which are actually produced by the ovaries. Now let's look at the estrogens. Right, what do they do? Now estrogens, you have three major estrogens. One is your beta estradiol, okay, that's your beta estradiol. Then you have estrone, okay, estrone, and then you have estriol. Okay, so these are the three estrogens which are produced, these are the three estrogens which are actually produced by your the three types of estrogens produced by your cortex region of the ovary. Okay, now what do they do? They're being produced. Now what do they do? So if you take the estrogens, okay, they play several important roles. Okay, they are actually responsible for the growth and development of the ovarian follicles. Okay, basically the follicles will start to grow and actually form the egg or the ovum, which can fuse with the sperm cell to finally form the embryo. Okay, so these estrogens are responsible for the growth and development of the ovarian follicles. In addition to the ovarian follicles, they are also responsible for the breast development. Okay, the growth and development of the breast is also because of the estrogens. Then you have the sexual characteristics, okay, the secondary sexual characteristics, okay, to be specific. The secondary sexual characteristics, for instance, that you see in females with high-pitched voice and all, it is mainly because of the estrogens, okay. Secondary sexual characteristics is because of the estrogens, right? And then it plays an important role in inhibiting, okay, the osteoclastic activity. Okay, osteoclasts are some type of cells, okay, which actually attack our bones, okay, and start releasing calcium from the bones, okay. You don't have to worry about why they actually attack and all, okay. Just understand this: there are certain types of cells in our body, okay, in order to maintain calcium levels, actually they start acting on the bones and start releasing the calcium from the bones. So as a result of this, your bones start to become weak, okay. As a result of this, the bones start to become weak. So in order to prevent that, the estrogens actually inhibit this activity of the cells, okay. So particularly if you take menopausal women, okay, menopausal women, when I say menopausal women, basically the estrogen levels will be very low in them, okay. In these women, okay, where the cycle actually stopped, okay, you will see they actually suffer with osteoporosis, okay. They actually suffer with osteoporosis because, okay, the reason why they suffer with osteoporosis is, in them there's not the estrogens which were actually inhibiting the osteoclastic activity are no longer present. So no estrogens, no osteoclastic activity. So no inhibition of the osteoclastic activity, sorry. So the osteoclastic cells will simply go and start acting on our bones. So particularly in women, okay, it is because of this osteoclastic activity you see osteoporosis, and ultimate reason is the absence of estrogens, okay. So what else do the estrogens do? The estrogens are also responsible for the skin structure, right? And like I said, they are not only responsible for inhibiting the osteoclastic activity, they're also responsible for the bone formation, okay. So that way, so absence of estrogen in women can actually lead to weakening of the bones or osteoporosis, okay. They're also responsible for the skin structure and skin texture, of course, okay. They're responsible for the skin texture and the female sexual behavior, just like your testosterone, just like your androgens, which are actually responsible for male sexual behavior. The female sexual behavior is under the control of your estrogens, okay. So that is about estrogen. Then you have progesterone. Now, so at this point, let me tell you something. Estrogens are produced by the cortex region of the ovary, okay. However, when a woman becomes pregnant, okay, as soon as the placenta actually forms, the placenta also secretes lots and lots of estrogen and progesterone, okay. And that is done to ensure that the proper nourishment of there are several reasons, okay, we'll discuss them, but basically to make sure that the embryo stays healthy, okay, and spontaneous abortion, to prevent spontaneous abortion, okay, these hormones are produced continuously by the placenta of the woman, okay. So though I'm saying that estrogens are produced by the cortex region of the ovaries and the progesterone is produced by the corpus luteum, when a woman gets pregnant, the placenta also releases the same hormones, the estrogens as well as the progesterone, okay. Progestins, okay, progestins. So one of the important progestins which is produced by the corpus luteum is progesterone, okay. There are several progestins and the most important one is your progesterone. The most important one is your progesterone, and small amounts of 17 alpha hydroxy progesterone is also produced by the corpus luteum. Okay, 17 hydroxy progesterone is also produced by the corpus luteum. Okay, now the progesterone, okay, has only two major roles, just two major roles. The first one is prepare uterus for pregnancy. Okay, the first one is to prepare uterus for pregnancy, to make everything ready. Okay, and the second one is prepare the breast for lactation. Okay, okay, basically it stimulates the breast, okay, to start milk sacs. Okay, we call them alveoli. Okay, just like your lung alveoli, they are also called as alveoli. So basically it starts stimulating the formation of these alveoli, so that milk can be actually stored, and basically these are the two functions which are related to your progesterone. Then, okay, like I said before, the placenta also produces several hormones. Okay, in addition to the estrogens and progesterones, there are some other things which are actually produced once a woman gets pregnant. So if you look at the placenta, okay, so it's basically it's not an endocrine organ, it's basically a tissue. Okay, so we started, okay, discussing the tissues which secrete hormones. Okay, now we are discussing the tissues which secrete the hormones, right? Right. So if you look at the tissues which actually secrete the hormones, there are several tissues which secrete the hormones. We'll start with the placenta and then we'll discuss the rest. Okay, now let's take placenta. If we take placenta, it actually produces 4 different hormones. Yeah, so the 4 hormones which are produced by the placenta are HCG. Okay, HCG is human chorionic gonadotropin, right? You have this HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. Then you have HPL, okay, human placental lactogen, human placental lactogen, right? You have human placental lactogen. Then you have the estrogens, which we already discussed. Okay, then you have progestins. Okay, the reason why I'm writing progestins is there are various kinds of progestins which are produced, and particularly the one which is produced here is progesterone. Okay, so estrogens and progestins, we already discussed some of the functions which they perform, okay, before a woman gets pregnant. Okay, once the placenta is formed, okay, that is post pregnancy, these hormones have several other roles. Okay, so we look at the roles of these hormones first. Okay, roles post pregnancy. Okay, what do they do post pregnancy? Okay, now if you take the estrogens, they actually help in uterus enlargement. They help in the enlargement of the uterus, and then like I said before, growth of the breast ductal structure actually, so that they can actually start secreting milk. Okay, ductal structure. And then it also affects or plays a role in rate of embryo cell division. Okay, it plays a role in how soon the rate at which the cells divide in a embryo. Okay, it affects the rate at which the cells in an embryo divides. Okay, so these are the roles of estrogens post pregnancy. Okay, once a woman gets pregnant, these are the roles which are additional roles which are performed by your estrogens. Then you have post pregnancy progesterone role. What will this do? Okay, if you take the progesterone, yeah, post pregnancy, it also plays an important role in the formation of, okay, something called decidual cells. Okay, so you have endometrium, okay, a layer called endometrium, the uterus lining actually. So that is where your embryo gets implanted. Okay, that is where your embryo gets implanted, and in that endometrium, it stimulates the formation of decidual cells. Decidual, okay, DECIDUAL. Let me write it clearly. Decidual. Okay, it stimulates the formation of decidual cells, and these decidual cells actually nurture, okay, or nourish the embryo. Okay, so progesterone actually helps in the nourishment of the embryo. What else? So it also prevents, progesterone also prevents uterine contractions. Okay, so when a woman has a baby, okay, unnecessary uterine contractions can actually lead to spontaneous abortions. Okay, just to prevent those spontaneous abortions, the progesterone prevents uterine contractions. Okay, then it plays an important role in the development of morula, which is the developmental stage of your embryo. Okay, it plays a role in the morula development. So these are the additional roles which are actually performed by your estrogens and progesterone post pregnancy. Okay, now we'll talk about the HCG and HPL now. What do they do? Okay, now the HCG is also called, like I said, human chorionic gonadotropin. Okay, so this actually maintains, the role of HCG is to maintain, okay, corpus luteum. The role is to maintain the corpus luteum layer. Okay, so it basically prevents the menses. Okay, the menstrual cycle is halted because of the HCG. Okay, it maintains the corpus luteum and prevents the menstrual cycle from happening. Okay, it not only maintains it, it stimulates its growth, and it also stimulate, when I say its growth, we're talking about the corpus luteum growth. Okay, it stimulates the corpus luteum growth. It also stimulates the corpus luteum, okay, the corpus luteum, to start releasing both estrogen and progesterone. So higher levels of estrogen and progesterone, additional levels of estrogen and progesterones can be seen during pregnancy because the HCG stimulates the corpus luteum to start secreting more and more estrogen and progesterone. Okay, and this is, HCG is also called as pregnancy hormone. This is the one which is actually used for, this hormone is actually detected in the urine, okay, to confirm pregnancy. Okay, so if somebody is pregnant or not, a simple way to detect it is to check for HCG in the urine. Okay, so a positive HCG result will confirm the pregnancy. Okay, then what else? So it also stimulates the development of, okay, it stimulates the development of testis in male fetus. Okay, if the fetus is male, right, in the male fetus, it stimulates the development of testes. So these are the various roles played by HCG in the post-pregnant woman. Okay, then what will HPL do? HPL is human placental lactogen. Okay, and this is also called as, there's another name for this, human chorionic, okay, somato, okay, mammotropin, human chorionic mammo, okay, somatomamotropin. Okay, so this is responsible for the carbohydrate and protein metabolism of the mother. Okay, the mother's carbohydrate and protein metabolism is actually regulated by the human placental lactogen, okay, or human chorionic somatomamotropin. Okay, and this is also produced by the placenta. Okay, so what other tissues do we actually? So the other tissues which actually produce hormones are, okay, you have the stomach tissue actually produces hormones. Okay, a few hormones are produced by stomach tissue. Then you have your small intestine which secretes some hormones. Okay, small intestine secretes some hormones. Then you have heart which secretes some hormones. Then you have kidneys. Okay, so these are the various tissues which actually secrete the hormones, right? So we'll start with the stomach. What are the hormones produced by the stomach? So far, okay, what we discussed earlier was the organs, the endocrine organs, okay, or glands which actually produce the hormones. These are not glands, these are actually tissues which are actually, these are not endocrine organs, these are endocrine, you can say tissues which are actually secreting some hormones. Okay, now what is the hormone secreted by stomach? The stomach G cells, okay, G cells in the stomach actually secrete a hormone called gastrin. Okay, now this gastrin has two important roles. One is stimulation of gastric acid secretion, okay, stimulation of gastric acid secretion. Okay, it stimulates the stomach to actually, particularly the parietal cells, to start secreting the gastric acid. Okay, the other role played by it is stimulation of, okay, it stimulates the gastric lining to start making more and more mucosa. Okay, stimulation of growth of gastric mucosa. Okay, so you have gastric acid secretion, obviously you need protection from the gastric acid being secreted. Okay, and you get your protection, the stomach needs to be protected. You need gastric acid secretion for the food, okay, but the gastric acid can, okay, cause severe effects on your stomach lining. In order to prevent that, you have gastric mucosa. Okay, so gastrin not only stimulates the gastric acid secretion, it also ensures that the stomach is actually being protected by stimulating the growth of more and more gastric mucosa. Okay, so that is the stomach tissue which is actually producing the gastrin hormone. Then what are the hormones produced by the small intestine? Okay, what are the various hormones being produced by the small intestine? The small intestine, you can see, produces 4 different hormones. One is cholecystokinin, okay, cholecystokinin. Then you have secretin, okay, cholecystokinin, then you have secretin. Then you have GIP, which is gastric inhibitory peptide. Gastric inhibitory peptide. Okay, gastric inhibitory peptide. Okay, and then finally you have motilin. Okay, motilin. So these are the 4 hormones which are actually secreted by your small intestine. Okay, so the small intestine tissues actually, now here itself I'll tell you, cholecystokinin is produced by the I cells of the small intestine. Secretin is produced by the S cells of the small intestine. Okay, gastric inhibitory peptide is produced by the G cells of the small intestine. Okay, and then sorry, not G cells, I'm sorry, K cells, the K cells of the small intestine. Then you have your motilin, which is actually produced by the M cells of the small intestine. The M cells of the small intestine is produced by the, motilin is produced by the M cells of the small intestine. Okay, so these are the various cells which actually secrete the hormones. Now what do they do? If you take cholecystokinin, okay, if you take cholecystokinin, okay, so what it does is, you know that pancreas actually secrete the pancreatic enzymes as well as bicarbonate, right? So this cholecystokinin stimulates the pancreas, okay, stimulates pancreas to start secreting the enzymes as well as bicarbonate. Okay, stimulates the pancreas to start secreting, okay, stimulates the pancreas so that the pancreas will now start secreting the enzyme and the bicarbonates, the various enzymes, the digestive enzymes which are produced by the pancreas. Then what else? So it also stimulates, okay, it also stimulates the contraction of gallbladder. So you know that the bile is actually stored in your gallbladder. Okay, so it's basically a pouch or a sac kind of a thing. So it needs to be pressed in order to release the bile which is actually stored in it. Okay, that contraction is also stimulated by the cholecystokinin. Okay, the last thing that it does is, yeah, okay, bicarbonate, yeah, we discussed this already. Okay, in addition to the enzyme, it also stimulates the production of bicarbonates. Okay, so these are the 3 things which is actually done by the cholecystokinin. Then you have secretin. What will secretin do? Okay, secretin, it plays an important role in the pepsin secretion. Okay, we know that pepsin is actually secreted from the stomach. Okay, even though this secretin is actually released in the small intestine, okay, you know very well that the hormones are actually released directly into all the endocrine hormones are actually released directly into the blood. The secretin through the blood will reach the stomach and then stimulate the stomach to start secreting pepsin. Okay, to start secreting the enzyme pepsin. Okay, so this actually stimulates the pepsin secretion from the stomach. It is not released from the stomach, it is actually released from the small intestine. Through the blood it is reaching the stomach, and in the stomach it is stimulating cells to secrete pepsin. Okay, this is important. Now in addition to that, it also stimulates the secretion of bicarbonate. Okay, stimulates the secretion of bicarbonate from not just pancreas, just like your cholecystokinin. It not only stimulates the bicarbonate production from pancreas, but also from gallbladder. Okay, it stimulates the secretion of bicarbonate from both pancreas as well as gallbladder. Okay, the final thing is it inhibits the gastric acid secretion. It inhibits the gastric acid secretion. Gastric acid is basically released by your stomach. Okay, again, so it does all the three things, though it is being released by the small intestine S cells. Okay, S cells of the small intestine are actually releasing it, but through the blood it is reaching the stomach, and where there it is showing all these effects. Okay, stomach and of course pancreas and gallbladder as well. Okay, then you have your GIP. Okay, so this GIP, it has two roles. One is it stimulates the release of insulin from pancreas, stimulates insulin release from the pancreas. Obviously you know that. Okay, insulin is actually released from pancreas. GIP actually stimulates the release of insulin from the pancreas. Then it all, just like your secretin, even this inhibits the gastric acid secretion. Okay, even this inhibits the gastric acid secretion. Then you have the final hormone which is produced by your small intestine, which is your motilin. Motilin is actually responsible for the motility, so your stomach actually moves. Okay, mechanical digestion of the stomach is because of the movements. Okay, the motility of the stomach is controlled by the motilin, which is actually produced by the small intestine. The small intestine releases this hormone into the blood. Through the blood, the motilin reaches the stomach and it causes the movements of the stomach. Okay, so this is about the hormones which are secreted by the small intestine. Then heart, we look at the hormones secreted by the heart. Okay, there's just one hormone which is actually secreted by the heart. It is called antinatriuretic hormone. Okay, in short it is called ANF, antinatriuretic hormone. Okay, now this hormone, it is not continuously released by the heart. Okay, this hormone is released only when the BP increases. Okay, when the BP increases, the BP has to be controlled. Okay, body will release this hormone in order to control the BP. Okay, particularly the heart will actually release this. There are several other hormones which actually control the BP. Okay, with several other hormones which are released for controlling the BP, but one such hormone is your ANF. Okay, which is secreted by, or which is released by the heart. Okay, now this obviously has to control BP. So it controls BP, this hormone controls BP by doing two things. Okay, controls BP by doing two things. Okay, first one is vasodilation. Okay, vasodilation. So if your blood vessel is like this, okay, if your blood vessel is like this, okay, and now the blood pressure is high. Okay, now the blood pressure is high. If the blood vessel is expanded a bit, okay, obviously the pressure will go down. The pressure will be high here. Okay, this is called vasodilation. The blood vessels are actually dilating, okay, or expanding. Okay, this expansion is actually caused by your ANF. Okay, and this process is called vasodilation. Okay, so one way it controls the BP is vasodilation. It increases the diameter of the blood vessels, okay, thereby decreasing the blood pressure. Okay, so that's vasodilation. The second way is it eliminates sodium, okay, through urine. Okay, it excess sodium, you know very well that salt is actually responsible for BP. Particularly the sodium is actually responsible for BP. So if you have high sodium levels in your blood pressure will increase. BP will increase when sodium levels are high. So one way to reduce your BP is get rid of the sodium. Okay, so this hormone will go and ask the kidneys not to reabsorb the sodium, ask the kidneys to just release the sodium through the urine. Okay, once the sodium is lost, okay, so this is what happens. If sodium levels decrease, the blood volume decreases. Okay, whenever you have salt, more and more water is retained. Okay, and this increases your blood volume, but once the sodium is lost, the blood volume decreases. Okay, once the blood volume decreases, the BP will also decrease. Okay, the BP will decrease once the blood volume decreases. So this is the ANF. This is what ANF will do for you. Okay, then you have your hormones which are produced by the kidneys. What are the hormones produced by the kidneys? Okay, the kidneys actually produce 3 hormones. Okay, one is erythropoietin, then you have renin, okay, and then finally you have your calcitriol. These are the 3 hormones produced by your kidneys. Okay, now erythropoietin is released when you are subjected to hypoxic conditions. That is, when your oxygen, when the oxygen levels in the blood goes down, okay, your erythropoietin is released. Particularly, the situations where you can think of is if you are going to high altitudes, obviously the oxygen levels in the atmosphere itself will be low. Okay, because of which the oxygen reaching your blood will be low. Okay, so a hypoxic condition is created. So in order to meet, so you have low oxygen levels, but your tissues need oxygen. So another way to ensure that all your tissues get enough oxygen is to increase the RBC. So we are basically increasing the transporter. Okay, so under hypoxic conditions, okay, erythropoietin is released. Okay, this erythropoietin will now increase the erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis is nothing but the process of making RBC. Okay, it stimulates the process, it stimulates the formation of RBC. Okay, it stimulates the formation of RBC. Therefore, the RBC levels will raise. Okay, so erythropoietin basically stimulates the synthesis of RBC or makes more and more RBC. Then we look at calcitriol. Calcitriol is nothing but the active form of vitamin D. It is the active form of vitamin D. Okay, the same vitamin D which you get through your by exposing your body to sun. Okay, so sunlight is good because it helps in the synthesis of vitamin D. Now, what is vitamin D? Vitamin D, the active form of vitamin D is your calcitriol. Now, why do you need vitamin D? Vitamin D, okay, or calcitriol, which is a hormone, okay, will go and stimulate, released from the kidneys, right? It stimulates the synthesis of calcium binding protein. Okay, so basically when you eat food, okay, the food will go through your alimentary canal. Okay, there are several carrier proteins in your alimentary canal to pick up the various elements, the various glucose molecules, amino acids, and everything that are present in your food. Okay, you need carrier molecules sitting on the surface of your cells in the alimentary canal. Okay, if this is your alimentary canal and these are the cells of your alimentary canal, you basically need, okay, the receptors or pickup molecules here which can actually hold the molecules and take them into the cell and then transport it to the various parts of the body. Okay, so one such protein is your calcium binding protein. So the role of calcium binding protein, as the name suggests, is to pick up the calcium from the food and then deliver it to the blood. From the blood it can reach your tissues, particularly for deposition in the bones. Okay, calcium has several other roles. One important role is getting deposited in the bone and help in bone growth. Okay, so you need this calcium binding protein for picking up the calcium. Okay, and you need calcitriol because the calcium binding protein is synthesized only in the presence of calcitriol. Calcitriol stimulates the synthesis of calcium binding protein. The calcium binding protein will pick up the calcium from the food which you are taking. Okay, and that helps in your bone formation. So without your vitamin D you get rickets, because rickets is basically deformation of bones. It is because you don't have calcium binding protein, no calcium binding protein, so no calcium absorption, no bone formation. Okay, so that is what basically happens. Now finally we are left with the third one, which is renin. Okay, so the role of renin is in the activation of angiotensinogen. Okay, angiotensinogen is converted to angiotensin 1 in the presence of renin. It basically has a proteolytic activity. Okay, now why do we need this? We need this because there's a system called RAS system. Okay, so basically RAS system is a renin, angiotensin, okay, angiotensin, aldosterone. Okay, so these are the three things which actually control your atrial pressure and cardiac output. So this system, RAS, RAA system. Okay, so renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, these three things actually control the cardiac output and atrial pressure, blood pressure. Okay, so these actually control these two things. Okay, so if the renin is not there, your blood pressure will be uncontrolled. Okay, it won't be under control. Okay, so here the renin is released when your BP goes down, okay, or your sodium levels increase. So this is the reverse of your ANF. When the BP goes up, ANF is released. Here renin is released when the BP goes down, and ANF is released when the sodium levels are high. Here when the sodium levels are low, your renin is released. Okay, just to bring the BP back to normal. So renin plays an important role in making sure the BP is actually maintained. Okay, so that is about the various hormones. Okay, that is about the various hormones which are actually produced by the various tissues in the body. So with this we wrap up the session on endocrine glands. Okay, we'll soon let you know when the next session will be, and the topic as well will be notified. So do subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Okay, and don't forget to download our app. There's a lot more content there. You can have practice sessions on what we have discussed here. Okay, that's it. Goodbye.